Okay, so let me adjust my mic. So at this point, we have our standard recognition of visitors. Let me just read a few announcements pertaining to that. All speakers are to conduct themselves in a civil manner. Obscene language, libelous statements, threats of violence, statements advocating racial, religious, or other forms of prejudice will not be tolerated. Persons wishing to discuss matters involving individual district personnel or students should present their comments and/or concerns to the superintendent of schools during regular school business hours. With that said, are there any members of the public that would like to stand, be recognized for public comments?
Am I good? Well, there we go. Good evening. My name is John Hines, and I'm the president of the Cornwall Central Teachers Association. I want to bring to the board's attention key result 6 of goal 3 from Superintendent Dade's goals. This particular goal discusses the implementation of a drop rotation schedule at CCHS for next school year. As I've discussed with Superintendent Dade, implementing this schedule is a change to the terms and conditions of employment for my members. This concept has been discussed since 2018. The CCTA and CCSD have collectively bargained 2 agreements in that time, but the district has never brought up a drop rotation schedule to the bargaining table. Our current CBA will not expire until the end of next school year, June 2025. I've informed Superintendent Dade that I will not be signing an MOA solely for the implementation of a drop rotation schedule at CCHS. The entire CCTA membership would be voting to ratify this new agreement. A change of this scale would require many aspects of our contract to be open for negotiations. I'm sharing this with you tonight in an effort to be transparent and honest with all stakeholders. Questions I have for the Board of Education. Have you been given a formal plan for the drop rotation schedule? Have you authorized the superintendent to enter into negotiations with the CCTA? If not, when will this occur? My members in the community are aware of contract agreements the Board of Education entered into on June 12, 2023 with central administrators and other individuals. We're hopeful and expect that any potential proposal the district makes to the CCTA will be as generous as those agreements were. Thank you.
Thank you, John Hines. Any other public comments? Okay, let's move on to reports. And let me start it off by first welcoming our new members of the board here, our student representatives, Kate Patterson and Nicholas Tesson. So welcome. Before you get into the good news that you're going to share with us, as you go, I'd like you to introduce yourselves and explain to us your inspiration and motivation for being here as student reps to the Board of Education. Thank you.
My name's Kate Patterson, as you all know by now. I am a senior, and I saw the past school principal's email, Mr. Piazza, about being the student representative. I told my mom about it, and I was like, this is really cool. I should try this out, because I don't think anyone actually cares, or I don't know anyone else who would be doing this other than just to put it on their college application resume. So I'm just excited to be here, and I actually care about my grade, and I want to work with Nick to be able to give an honest report every month for you guys.
Awesome, thank you.
I'm Nick Tesson, and I'm 17 years old, and I am also a senior. And I applied for this position because I am also the vice president of my class. I've been last year as well. And I found that I have the desire to represent others like I have throughout the past years in student government. And I'm hoping to go to college for something in the political field, so I feel like this is a good step in getting experience for that.
Well, awesome. I just want to congratulate you both for stepping up and to answer the call of duty and to be part of this, this humble assemblage here. And I'm sure you're going to follow in the the footsteps of those who've come before you and represent Cornwall students very well. So thanks again, and welcome. Now, please share the good news that you're here to update us with.
High school.
Should we go elementary school?
Yeah,
that's fine. All right. So, good news from COH. COH, the school year got off to a great start. It began with our annual PTO date held on Monday, September 4th. Many students gathered in the back of the school, played with new and old friends. Students and staff have made a smooth transition back to school. This year's schedule has provided opportunities for classroom teachers to collaborate with special area teachers to plan enrichment in art, library, and music. Also new this year, every class has scheduled time for an ed teacher to support STEAM and blended learning. Open house was held on Thursday, September 14th with a tremendous turnout where parents and guardians were able to spend the evening listening to teachers explain their plans and expectations for their children. COH will hold its first Spirit Day on September 22nd, where we are hoping the classrooms and hallways are filled with students and staff wearing green and white. The first morning opening assembly will take place for students and parents on September 22nd as well, followed by the first PTO meeting. We're looking forward to welcoming parents back to help celebrate their children's success.
Cornwall Elementary School good news. We are already back in the swing of things here at Cornwall Elementary School. Our teachers and staff have been hard at work preparing our students for what will surely be an amazing school year. We held a faculty meeting on September 1st to kick off the school year. Old and new staff members got to connect with a fun icebreaker activity, and we celebrated Lauren Krill's 25 years of service at Cornwall Elementary School. Administration also laid out their goals and vision for the new school year. During the second week of school, our kindergarten classes hosted color days. Each day, their students were tasked with wearing a color that corresponded to the schedule: red on Monday, yellow on Tuesday, etc. Even some of our staff members joined in on the fun. Our halls have been filled with bright and cheerful colors all week, and our kindergarten students have been learning so much. Our third grade classes begin their first of many field trips to Black Rock Forest. Each season, our students complete field research in the forest to examine how the ecosystem changes throughout the year. We look forward to seeing their findings. The Cornwall Elementary School PTO has also been busy organizing activities for our students and staff. On Tuesday, they arranged for Santoro's Coffee Cart to serve coffee and pastries in our faculty lounge. Our teachers were thrilled to have a tasty treat to start their day. The PTO is also in the process of planning the Welcome Back Carnival, where our students will have a chance to dunk some staff members in the dunk tank, play fun carnival games, and even win prizes. We are so thankful for all that our PTO members do. Looking ahead to October, we are very excited for our first Spirit Assembly of the year, our second annual First Responders Day, and the Halloween Parade. Willow Avenue Elementary School, good news. We are so happy to be back at school at Willow Avenue. Our students and teachers have been busy creating their classroom communities and learning what it is to be a good friend. Ms. Sawicki, our social worker, has been visiting the classrooms talking about DASA and teaching a lesson on our monthly character trait of friendship. Ms. Buckles is visiting all of our classes to read a book about friendship and teaching our little dragons ways to sprinkle kindness like confetti around Willow. Our friendship garden is in full bloom in our main hallway, and our kindness tree is blooming with leaves already. We also have our Willow Spotlight on our sensational custodial staff this month for all of their hard work over the summer to get our buildings ready to welcome our students and staff back. We were very excited to welcome our families to Willow for open house last Thursday. Families had the opportunity to visit their students' classrooms and meet their teachers. Our third graders are heading to Black Rock at the end of the month to explore and discover the vernal ponds, and our kindergarteners are looking forward to going apple picking. We will end the month with our first Friday morning opening where we will recognize our Principals Award winners for the month of September. We are off to a great start at Willow and are looking forward to a successful school year.
Cornwall Central Middle School. All right. We've had a great opening to our school year. Many thanks to our teachers and staff for all the work and preparation to welcome back our students. CCMS is abuzz with excitement and energy. Our very own teacher band greeted students and parents on the first day, and students have already gotten back into the full swing of things. CCMS hosted their annual Dragon Camp this August. Incoming fifth graders got the opportunity to meet their teachers and classmates, drop off supplies, learn a little more about the building, play in our playground, start a collaborative art project, and take part in cooperative games. We finished the day off with pizza for lunch. It was an amazing morning. Many thanks to all of our teachers who helped. CCMS was so excited to open our doors to our parents for open house. Parents in grades 5 to 8 had the opportunity to follow their child's schedule, meet their teachers, and learn all of about the programs and activities their child will be able to participate in this year. Band, chorus, and orchestra families learned all about our music program, and Mr. Simo spent time with our 7th and 8th grade families, sharing the mission, vision, and expectations for our student athletes and their families. All right. And last but not least, the high school. So the school year kicked off with a really positive first day with the seniors mingling in the parking lot to celebrate their final year and the freshmen navigating their first day of high school. Many seniors gathered together, painting their car windows with decor, kicking off the start of the new year. Class meetings were held from September 7th to 8th for introductory purposes, as well as a refresher into the code of conduct and expectations. Specifically, seniors were reminded of their responsibilities in terms of graduating and other important deadlines. On September 12th, an open house was held for teachers to meet and greet with parents, where they set expectations and gave a general overview of the class. Otherwise, sports have gotten off to a good start with soccer, football, volleyball, and tennis all bringing in wins. On September 14th, the football team versus Pine Bush on our home turf, and we were able to celebrate a win. The bleachers were packed with students decked out in USA-themed apparel and in support of the team. The following morning, seniors gathered together bright and early at Donahue Memorial Park for the senior sunrise. There was a united front amongst the students demonstrated. In addition, the school clubs have also been kicking off. For one, Youth and Government had double the amount of participants in the club's first meeting, proving to be promising going forward. Student Government has also met, and the organization is currently planning the homecoming dance, which is scheduled for October 14th. The CCHS Drama Club held auditions and is currently working on its fall play, Radium Girls, which opens the first week of November. And finally, in addition to the arts, CCHS's a cappella groups and concert choir have held auditions and are preparing music for their first winter concert, as well as other upcoming performances.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Now, in the tradition of previous boards, the student representatives were able to manage their own schedules, and I think we're going to keep that tradition alive. So to the degree that you have more pressing things like studying to do back at home, feel free that you could be, you can go. To the degree that it's early in the season and you want to stick around to see what really happens here, please, you're welcome. And during the closing comments, we'll ask you for your input. You're here for a reason, and that's to help us understand the student perspective of what's happening in the district, and it's very valuable. So thank you both for being here. And all I ask is that when you exercise that option that you have to leave, that you just let us know that you're going to do that, as opposed to just walking out, okay? But thank you both. All right. That takes us to the next part of our agenda, which is Superintendent Dade's update. Terry?
Thank you. I do want to make sure the board knows, because I met with Kate and Nick, the only caveat to President Edlin's remarks are if the meeting goes long, I think you would be able to get up and excuse yourself, because we don't know that beforehand. So, as we get into some longer meetings, also feel free to leave at a reasonable hour. Does that sound good?
I hope and pray that our meetings are not as, we've already set the record, nor will we challenge it in the future.
Yeah. So there's a meeting that would have dismissed you already. So Two things for update. One is just a capital project update. We are still in the midst of working towards completion of our student bathrooms. Willow got to celebrate the first across the finish line with the removal of the modular last Wednesday. Willow's bathrooms are complete for student use. Principal Buckholtz and Mr. Moran and folks would tell you that does not mean that they are completely polished. There's still some punch list items to be completed with those bathrooms, but we no longer need the modulars at Willow. CES will be the next to be completed just by way of looking at the progress. For all of the phase 1 work that did not get completed over the summer, some as planned, some unplanned, it's moving to second shift and over the weekend. There's some work being done during the day, and we have safety and security protocols that we utilize to manage that, as I explained to parents and the board in my letter to CES community earlier this week. So what that looks like is everyone still swipes in using our Raptor system, just like any guest to the building would do so. And then we have extra personnel from Mr. Moran's team that essentially shadow the workers to make sure that when they do need to leave the premises and things of that nature, that they're following all of our protocols. And then as I was visiting CES last week, I also got to see, our security and our deputies are amazing. So I actually got to watch our deputy walk some workers back in and escort them to the bathrooms where they were completing the work. This might seem new to some board members and things of that nature, but this happens all the time. When an elevator goes down, we have individuals enter our school buildings to fix the elevator during the day. We have the same types of protocols, so these are the protocols that we are utilizing now to try to accelerate some of that work at CES. And then CCMS, where my daughter is, we're still waiting for those bathrooms to be completed. They're next on the list. The anticipated, again, I can only give you what the project team tells me as of today, is to have CES online by week's end. I still think that there's a possibility that they'll need the weekend to finish up, but CES by week's end, my estimation is Monday, turning it back over to CES, and then CCMS by week's end next week. So again, I'll keep you updated with new information that's presented to me from the project team, but that's where we are. For my second comments, I just want to make sure that I give the board additional information to add to Mr. Hines's comments, because it seems like I just kind of sprung it on the CCTA. So back on May 30th, I emailed 2 members of that working group that we really utilize for collaboration to move some of the important work forward, stating, "Good afternoon, I'm writing to see if we can find some time," this was May 30th, 2023, "if we can find some time next week or the week following to discuss the drop rotation schedule proposed for school year 24-25. This meeting would be with the CCHS admin team and myself, so we can hear what questions, concerns there may be from the CCTA. Please let me know your availability for the next 2 weeks at your earliest convenience, and I'll coordinate accordingly." They did get back to me that, it's the end of the year, really busy, which I completely understood, so I said, no problem, I'll wait till we come back. So on August 20th, Mr. Hines sent me an agenda for a labor management meeting to occur on the 23rd. And I said, thank you, John. Brent and Megan will be joining me for the meeting. I have 2 items for the agenda. 1, review our working agreements, and 2, to put in a formal request to discuss the CCHS drop rotation schedule with whomever you deem appropriate. So again, I've been reaching out to try to get the conversation started. And in my notes, as a result of the labor management meeting, the next step, by my understanding, was that there was going to be a group meeting on the 20th, and Mr. Hines would ask permission to bargain about the drop rotation. So again, it's not sprung on anyone. I've shown a track record of trying to engage in this conversation, so I just want to make sure you have kind of the complete picture there. That's it for me.
Any questions for Terry on that? Brendan?
Just one request, and maybe just about the construction. I think it would be helpful at the end of all of this if we could get a representative from Palumbo or someone back in, just because this is phase one or of 2 phases, and I just want to know that we are able to interpret what they're telling us more accurately next time.
Yeah, we're already working with, Lewis is engaged with our team in getting the first facilities committee meeting scheduled. We would take kind of some information from Palumbo representatives there to get with the facilities committee, and then the facilities committee kind of provide us direction of what that next presentation would be. I think it would be in the coming months, just because we need to engage in these conversations early. So absolutely good point.
Anyone else? Yeah. Brendan, your question or comment was a great segue to the president's report. So let's move to the next side, or the next item, which is that my report. So if I had to entitle it, I would entitle it Runways, Refinements, and Alignments. And I'll start with the issue of runways. If you have too short of a runway, sometimes you just can't take off. And I think some of the issues that are circling around the district right now suggest that maybe our runways weren't long enough, especially on the construction side. And I do believe, to Brendan's point, that a lessons learned or an AAR before we get into future phases is called for, just so that we can understand what people can deliver, and we can also be realistic in terms of expectation. There's a term out there called optimism bias. We all think we can do more than we actually can at some point, and I'm not sure if that's what contributed to some of these delays, or is it just supply chain issues. But I think a thorough deep dive on what happened, how it happened, and how we can prevent it from happening in the future is definitely called for. So thank you for bringing that up, Brendan. And I'm sure Lewis and his facilities committee will be able to run that to ground for the whole board. In terms of refinements, there have been a number of issues related to emails that I want to just publicly mention. Some of those happen to do with responsiveness and my responsiveness. I apologize for that. I've been managing a couple balls that are starting to get very close to the ground. And so if I happen not to be responsive, I am not doing that intentionally. Please reach out and find a different form of communication to just make me aware that you tapped into emails. I'm not ignoring you. I'm just being a little bit OBE, as they say, overcome by events at present. That said, I understand that there's some difficulties with our distribution groupings or linkages, I guess, as it pertains to our website. So I think after this meeting, Jim, Terry, and I, as part of our board meeting follow-ups, we'll figure out a way that we can re-energize these linkages that we have, such that people who do want to reach out and communicate to either individual board members or the board en masse are able to do that with the technology that we have on our websites. I don't think that's malicious. I think that's just something that may have broken during an update, as typically happens when we're dealing with software. But please be patient and know that we're going to go ahead and rectify that as soon as we can. In terms of alignment, here we are in September, and as as Terry kind of alluded to, his process started back, I guess, back in May, as it pertained to goals. And one of the things that has struck Jim and I as we're looking at structures and looking at ways that we could improve and refine these structures that we have, is that maybe our timetable for how we go about goal setting seems to be in need of revamping. I'm happy that Terry's doing the heavy lift of starting this year's goals last year. I think it's incumbent on the board to help him in that process by doing what we can to provide structure and guidance as it pertains to his goals early on as possible, which means that if Terry is starting in the previous year to work on next year's goals, I think the board needs to do so as well. And I think that's is something that, in terms of things that we should discuss and explore and put on our to-do list, is something that I'd like to pursue for this year. You know, nothing's perfect, nor should it be, at least in this life. But I know if we work hard together and stay focused with a unity of purpose, we'll make things better than they may seem to be. So with that said, that concludes my report. Any questions or comments? No? Great, thank you. All right, so that then takes us to the consent agenda. And just bear with me for a second. The consent agenda, the use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included in the document, today's agenda. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of the business of the consent agenda may indicate so, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda items as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools, items 2 through 7. Does anyone have any items that they would like to pull from consideration?
I'll move it.
Well, I'm gonna,
Oh, sorry.
I'll get there.
Sorry,
Mike,
I'm still getting used to this side of the table.
that's my second question. That's my second question. This is good. You're ready for that quiz.
I'm ready to get all the answers right.
Yeah, I'm sure you do. It's going to be great. So, but is there anyone who would like to discuss one of these items on the consent agenda separately? Christian?
Number 2,
Number 2.
recommended actions. It's for clarification.
Okay, number 2. Anyone else?
Number 5, please.
Number 5, the TRS reserve funding.
Number 6.
Number 6, okay.
Capital
The capital, I'm glad I mentioned that, all right. The 6. Any others? I will take 5 and 7 as well, because I think we kind of lump those together, and that's under the category of what I would call surplus funds. And so that will leave for the consent agenda, and I'm looking at Brendan because he's going to be ready to be our mover. Items 3 and 4. Is there a
I'll move it.
motion? Thank you, Brendan. Second?
Second.
Richard, second? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Motion passed. So we'll take it in order. First, consent agenda item number 5, TRS reserve. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, there it is. I'm on the wrong page. Number 2, recommended actions for the month. Is there a motion? Thank you, Richard. Second? Christian, second. Discussion. Christian?
So I'm just a question for Jim, just confirming that the minor change to the minutes on September 7th were completed, and that's what we're voting on. I haven't been able to read any updated minutes since.
I checked it earlier, and I believe it was reflected. Let me just pull it up right now and. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so item number 2, it's been moved and seconded. We had a discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstainers? Motion passed. Thank you. Okay, takes us to number 5, which is the reserve funding resolution. The capital reserve, number 6, capital reserve funding resolution, and number 7, the ERS reserve amount resolution. I know these are separately listed. I'd ask that the board entertain, since these are doing with one separate issue, which is what to do with our surplus funds from the previous year. I'd ask that we consider all these 3 in one single motion as opposed to doing them individually. Could I have a motion for that? 5, 6, and 7?
I'll move it.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you, Louis, seconding it. Okay, discussion. Jim? You,
Yeah, I didn't really have a question. I just wanted to make a comment with number 6 here, the capital reserve funding resolution. I just wanted to comment that with this addition to our capital reserve fund, that we will be just near $3 million in the capital reserve, which was established in 2022 when the voters opened to establish a $5 million capital reserve fund, because we knew that we had a need greater than we were able to tackle with the last capital project in 2022, and we wanted to set in motion the plan to fund the additional improvements that were needed. And I just wanted to say, hey, we're now 3 million, or nearly 3 million out of 5 million, so we're about 60% there if we had the little thermometer with the red going up. So
we need that, I think.
yeah.
It was a green thermometer branded to the
Cornwall Dragons, of course. Excuse me. Yeah, thank you. So I just wanted to make that comment, for the public's knowledge, for the dozens of you watching at home, that we know that we have work to do in this district with capital repairs above and beyond what we were able to bite off with the last capital reserve, and this puts us in good position to do that in the near future and go out, and once we get that $5 million socked away, we have a bunch of projects already identified, and we can go back out to our voters and say, hey, we've got $5 million. We can turn this into 20 million or 21 or 22 million, whatever the number is that year on the state formula. And we can turn that, your tax dollars, which we've saved up, into we can multiply that and use them to great effect to enact needed improvements in our buildings. That's it. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Jim. Addressing critical needs is one of the most important things that we can do as a board to make sure it's properly resourced. And as we've done with the previous capital project, establishing these reserves is a great way to go about identifying the funds, right? The source of funds for those types of repairs and improvements. Anyone else want to comment on that section, what Jim said? No? Good, great. So let me lump then 5 and 6 and 7, my comments on that, together under one kind of umbrella. And that umbrella goes back to what I was talking about in terms of runways. If you have a long enough runway, you can take off, but if you have a short runway, it's really hard to take off and fly safely. And when I think of what the board is being asked to do here, which is take surplus funds and put them in, as Jim mentioned, capital reserve for current needs that we have. And we're also being asked in terms of taking those surplus funds to the tune of about $900,000 and putting them in a rainy day fund to protect the budget from any variability as it may occur due to actuarial changes, right? Due to modeling and the like, which is a prudent step, don't get me wrong, right? Because we want to have a budget that, one, we can be confident in, and a budget that doesn't get blown up because we underestimate our expenses and all. And one of the things that we could underestimate is obviously the contingent liabilities that we have as a district, whether it be pensions or health plans and the like, okay? So that said, I think in terms of, and I'm going to tie it back to Terry's point about starting the goal-setting process the previous year, when I think of some of the current needs that we have that we were unable to fund last year because of the budget process, because of our fear of the tax cap, and what the voters would support, I take a step back and I think that if there's a way that we can have a better real-time view of what type of surplus funds we may have at the end of the year, we may be a little bit more detailed in how we go about, lack of a better term, taking some of that unassigned fund balance to fund the balance, the budget every year, which is something that we do, and that number kind of fluctuates, which would, I think, help contribute to addressing some of our critical needs quicker than not. And another thought I had, and I believe, Jim, you were the legislative liaison last year, where this notion of a 4% cap for a school district seems passé in today's day and age. And as a matter of fact, I think Jim mentioned there was at least a grassroots idea towards expanding 4% someday to a larger threshold, maybe 8%. But we're not there yet. So that runway's being built for us, but it's still 4%. We don't have 8%. And 4% is important because it allows, I'm looking at Harvey specifically, and Jim, because of the work that the audit committee is doing to finalize the report for the board here in the next week or the next meeting or two, is that we just can't have excess funds without them being at least within statute or designated for a particular purpose, like we have these reserve funds established. And I believe most board members know that there are only a handful, maybe two handfuls, of items that we, as a board, are able to allocate reserves towards based on either our own actions or our own actions in unison with the public, the community. I'm looking at Harvey for either affirmation of that statement or a correction.
Correct.
I'm correct on that. Thank you. So I think, as I said, the runway is too short for this year. We just don't have enough time. But I think as we think of the things that we can do to improve next year, one of the legislative initiatives I think that we should strongly get behind is to find a way to strongly support this notion of expanding the unassigned fund balance from its current 4% threshold to a larger amount. And 8% seems like a fair amount. And I just throw that out there. We're not going to decide on this tonight, but trying to tie it all together. Another thought I had, and this happens to do with risk assessments. I can tell you in the business world, businesses take risks. and businesses would be willing to allow that 4% threshold to be exceeded if it was for a good reason and for it on a temporary basis. For instance, you had something that you needed to do and it cost you $400,000. If you had that in your surplus funds from the previous budget, you could earmark it for that purpose. And if, for whatever reason, that purpose did not come to fruition, let's say the supply chain broke down and you couldn't get whatever equipment you needed, you could then just reverse it and then provide it either back into a reserve, where then it's kind of like a lockbox, quasi-lockbox, or you could use it to the betterment of the taxpayer, reducing the tax burden by throwing that back in to reduce the budgetary expense from a tax receipt perspective. So I think as we migrate to hopefully a refined environment, there are a lot of things that I hope this board can deliberate, discuss, ultimately decide on how we can address some of the unfunded needs that we have that we've been unable to address because of various constraints. And that's the only thing I wanted to share about it. That's my comment. If anyone wants to add or the like, I'm happy. Brendan.
Yeah, I don't want to take it any further than it has to. I'm just curious, just so I can better understand what you're describing, what unfunded needs do you have in mind as you're explaining this?
Well, the unfunded needs would not be those that would be recurring. So, so an unfunded need, I think of, let's say a service that attributed to like COVID and getting back from COVID, whether it be a social, emotional support or tutoring support. That would be one thing, because you would think you would do it for 1 year and then you'd catch back up and then you wouldn't have to need it again. Unlike a need that would be for, let's say, a school position, a full-time employee, which once you put it into the budget, it recurs and grows as time goes on. Or a capital expense associated with, say, improved audio technology and the like, or books, audio, visual, or video books, software enhancements, things that would be identified as keeping us from being the best form of ourselves that we could be, earmarking it for that purpose, and then seeing if we could go about doing it. It's a multifaceted and multi-year problem, but what it all suggests to me, Brendan, is much like Terry has done for his goals, in order for us all to be on the same sheet of music as a district, the board, the administrators, the teachers, the employees, the students, we need to start our planning processes earlier. This year's process, the previous year. Next year's process, this year. And that's my point. Did that answer your
Yeah, no, I
question?
think I'm just trying to put it into categories. If you're saying like making it part of a legislative effort, I just think that if that is a goal that we decide we want to try to expand that from 4% to 8%, for instance, I think we would just have to have a clear argument for why that's necessary. I think everything you said makes sense, but I think that it goes in a couple of different directions, and we would just want to hone that argument if we were to bring it outside this room to the state.
Right, and I'd agree with that. I don't want to deliberate that matter tonight. That's not our purpose. It's just to highlight it, kind of put it out there, and at some point, hopefully, we could take it down once we get to goals and goal setting and the like. Okay? Any other Christian?
So just 2 points on, just reflecting on what you just said. The first one is that we need to, I think, understand that we just passed 2 budgets in the last 2 years with a 0% and a 1.82% increase. in an environment with 8% and 3% inflation. And there's underlying cost increases that we know are there. And the point is we need to be able to anticipate that at some point, just like everyone else, the cost of everything that we buy, from paper to toilet paper to pens, pencils, et cetera, is likely to go up. Okay, and eventually that would be like last year for like the transportation contract. So there are things that we need to, a realistic person, there are costs that are rising that perhaps are not evident yet in our budget because we are on, short-term contracts. So I think that's something that should be taken into that consideration. The second thing is just that when we put money, I realize to allocate, and I have nothing, I don't want to get into the relative priorities, and certainly the TRS, ERS, and capital reserve are worthy goals. When we put money there, it also means that we don't have money for some other things, such as you mentioned, like just to mention some things that were proposed in last year's budget discussions, improvements to the audiovisual and the theater and performing arts of the high school, which would be a good example of a one-time improvement. And UBK would be another thing where it's going to take some resources, and when you put these resources in the capital reserve, they're no longer available to perhaps other things, not to mention that we have contracts that will be negotiated in the future. So when we put money aside, we also have to realize that there is a future and there are anticipated increases that we need to take into account in, let's say, a longer term or strategic plan.
Thank you, Christian. Anyone else? Okay, well, thank you for that. We have a motion for 5, 6, and 7. It's been seconded. We've discussed it, I think, pretty well. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? None. Okay, great. Motion passed. Thank you, everyone. So then that takes us to old business, which first in that category we have discussion and approval of superintendent's goals for 23-24 school year. I will take the recommended action as per the resolution and the document itself. May I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Christian.
So let me just preface this that I appreciate the work that the administration did to update the goals since our last meeting. And while there's still many things that I'm happy with, my intent is to support these goals. But I'd like to just comment on some things that are still, let's say, unclear to me. The first one is under Goal 2. First of all, key result 1 is oddly specific about a nationally renowned technology integration consultant. And I was wondering, is there a person already we have in mind? So given, the language here. And the second of all, it's not clear to me what the district is actually doing here, because it seems to me we are hiring a consultant to come in, having that consultant develop rubrics and metrics, and then professional development. And this seems to be, it's not clear what our end of it as a district, as opposed to just hiring someone to do and address some of these issues. And under Goal 3, for example, key result 2 on Smithsonian science, when it says to ensure Smithsonian units of study align to next generation standards, if I went to the Smithsonian science website, they're aligned with next generation standards. So I'm not clear what the district part on this is, since we have a curriculum and the materials, and I believe Science 21 also the same thing. And lastly, under key result 6, something I was going to bring up even before it came up in public comment, there seems to be that first of all, it's not clear to me what I can speculate what the purpose is, but I'm not sure why changing the schedule, what is the anticipated goal of moving the time around. And I think that as a teacher, I can see some things that would happen here. It's effectively creating, let's say, a 9th period without creating a 9th period, and this creates issues because it probably would create a second prep period what does that mean for teachers' obligations? It shortens, let's say, the lunch period perhaps, or changes the lunch, it depends. And I would like to know, is there a specific drop rotation schedule proposal that has been developed, proposed, discussed, as opposed to just the overall concept? And I'll just bring up one thing why I have a concern about this, because just in the last 2 years, West Point did a similar thing where they reallocated their time for classes, which then meant all the professors had to redo their entire curriculums to fit into different time slot, which actually did affect what was being taught. And recently, they have switched back over a course of 4 or 5 years. And so I'm concerned that this is a big change. It's a burden as far as developing curriculum while we are doing other things where we are enhancing our curriculum, and whether this will, let's say, frustrate some of those other initiatives. So, as I said, I intend to support these goals, but I think that I would like to see more information on those points as we go forward.
Thank you, Christian. Terry, you want to
Yeah.
take that down?
So goal 2, thought I was clear at the last meeting that we went to a training with a nationally renowned consultant. I talked about principals going with me. So there is one identified, Eric Schiniger, that, again, it's the reason why we didn't name him is we haven't solidified it yet, but that's who we're interested in. The work that's being done on the district side, so we don't just turn it over to a consultant. For those of you at home who can't see this, my goals say things like partner with said consultants to develop rubrics that assess CCSD's current state and targeted improvement over time. So the partnering with the consultant is the critical piece here. Our administrators, selected teachers, and other staff members would be working with said consultant to determine what our current state is, what our desired state is, and really defining what purposeful use of technology is. So that's a heavy lift. It's easy to take a packaged program off the shelf and just say, let's implement this. It's completely different when you partner with a consultant to really do the work. So we're excited about that. He's done it, again, nationally. In other districts, he's working with Marlboro currently with this work, so we're thrilled with that piece. I'll have Megan speak to key result number 2 because it goes beyond just what's on the website for Smithsonian units. There's some work being done by our curriculum leads and the like. So, Megan?
Yeah, so more specifically, obviously, yes, like I shared previously, we have changed from Common Core to Next Gen state standards. What this work is doing is aligning it's a K-12 focus for change, and specific to what Terry's speaking about here, it's a K-8 focus on taking Smithsonian units and marrying that with ward science investigation. So similarly to how in the secondary level, Regents level courses, they need to have a certain number of labs before the kids can sit for the Regents exams. Now the kids have to start in 3rd grade participating in the administration of investigations that will get them set for now the exam taking place in 5th grade and then again in 8th grade. So that's what this speaks to, is making sure that the alignment is taking place with the labs and then the new units of study for Smithsonian science.
And then for goal number 3, key result number 6, it states specifically educate, engage, solicit feedback from stakeholders, and develop a plan to implement a drop rotation schedule at CCHS beginning with the 24-25 school year. So notice how I didn't just jump to implement. That would be a completely different conversation. The educate piece is the work that I'm doing with Mr. DeBold, Ms. Wilhelm, to determine what that timeline looks like for presentation to the board. We already have an anticipated date for that presentation to occur, part 1, but it doesn't stop there. There'll be a part 2 that dives deeper into drop rotation. So presentation 1 is what it is, what the pros and cons would be. Very just high level because drop rotation schedule isn't something that's absolutely typical across all districts. And then part two is really answering some of the questions that might be still out there with regards to how do we make it happen. So again, educate, engage, solicit feedback from stakeholders, and develop the plan is the goal for this year. It's really important that the education piece occurs while we're soliciting feedback from all stakeholders throughout the year.
Yeah, thank you, Terry, for that, and for reinforcing the notion of runways. The longer the runway, the easier it is to take off. And I think what you've just articulated is trying to build a runway so we can take off with that come the following year. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Christine?
I really look forward to learning about the drop schedule piece. I'm just wondering if the goal of implementing this in 24-25 is ambitious because of the concerns that have been raised earlier. Is it worth, with an ideal target of that, and then perhaps it's really in the future further? Because I just would hate to see us get that far, and then that's kind of the failure, is that it didn't take off that year.
Yep. Part of the information that you'll hear is this has been discussed for years, since 2018. So I don't think it's ambitious. I think now is the time to actually get something done. So just like when I entered here, getting the infrastructure in place and up and running, getting a capital project passed, now is the time to get this thing done. So I know there's concerns. You all know me, if it's right by kids, we're gonna push full forward. Hear from students, hear from teachers that for the past 2 years have gone to visits to districts like Suffern, like Warwick. There's an upcoming visit to Rye to take a look at what it actually is. I went on a visit with Mr. DeBold last year to see it for myself. So I think it's seemingly new because we weren't ready to bring it to the board last year. Mr. Piazza's plan was to implement it this year. That was ambitious because we didn't have all the pieces together. So it's really 24-25 is the right time to. I know that there's hurdles to overcome, but I believe we can do it to do right by our students.
Good, Christine. Thank you, Terry. Any other questions, comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? None. Well, thank you, everyone. Motion passed. That takes us to our next item, which is discussion / approval of board goals for 23-24. I make a motion that we amend this agenda item to include only a discussion. We are not looking to approve board goals for 23-24 tonight. We will do that at our subsequent meeting, which hopefully will be on the 2nd of October, I believe. So that is a motion. Can I get a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? None. All right, good. Well, thank you, everyone, for that. So let me tee this item up and try to more fully explain the rationale for how I believe we got where we are. You heard me earlier talk about refinement and alignment as being some of the key things that I've been reflecting on. I think this is a great example of things that we need to refine as well as align. Refine the timing of it. I think talking about board goals after school has been in session for 2 weeks seems to be outdated. I think we need to do it probably similar to what Terry articulated last May for what he was working towards. I think we need to do this type of action, start it at least in the spring, and look to finalize it maybe the first or the second meeting during the summer at the latest, such that when school's in session, we're all on the same sheet of music, all moving towards the same objectives, and all focused on our student outcomes. So I recognize that the current system, method, is flawed. My commitment to you all is to make this a priority for us this year to get it refined, to improve it, to harmonize it with what Terry and his team do, to provide ample structure and guidance to that end for Terry and his team, and to have us all kind of rowing together as opposed to rowing in either separate boats or in different types of vehicles. So let me be first and foremost apologetic for the state of affairs that we find ourselves here tonight. I know this was on the docket for last meeting. Call it God intervention or a force majeure caused that meeting to be ceased early due to, I guess, weather conditions. So there wasn't really a good time to discuss it. But I do believe Jim did give homework assignments to the board. What I have here is the first cut of that assignment, if you will. Terry, if you take one and pass it down. And Jim, you do the same. The purpose tonight is not to deliberate over the first draft. Are we missing one? Does Terry have one? Here's a, one's coming around. You got it? Do we need more on this side? We're out of balance. Yes? Okay, coming around. So I passed this out not so that we deliberate about it tonight. This is something that I want everyone to review, to reflect on, and then provide input in between this meeting's close and the agenda setting for our next meeting. And so when the agenda is set and the materials for our next meeting are then disseminated, I hope to have assembled and synchronized and the like, taken everyone's pearls of wisdom and input and put together a usable document that is practical in terms of its ability to complete, but also purposeful in terms of making a difference for this school year, for the board, for Terry and his staff, and the teachers, and ultimately the students. So,
John, can I just to quickly,
if you give me, let me complete my thought because I was almost there.
I just want to make sure I understand that point you just made, though.
Oh,
about
okay,
next steps.
sure, go ahead.
So when we deliver that feedback, do you actually have this document that you can give us in electronic format?
So after this meeting is completed, you will receive this document in Word form in your email, and that will be then the document. I was thinking we could use it as a Google Docs and have everyone. No, use it individually and provide your input, your adds or edits to a single source document, and then email it, save it, and then email it. So we can attribute that to you, so then when we roll it all up together and try to make sense of it all, we can at least make sure everyone's views have been vetted and the like, okay? Otherwise, it's going to be somewhat unwieldy in terms of, all right, who said this, who said that, and the like, okay? So thank you for that, Brendan. That was my final point on, in terms of what the next steps are. I believe what I heard tonight suggests that as much as there are 4 items that you see here listed that are considered for academic goals, and then longer-term goals and guideposts, we're going to massage this list in a way that makes sense for us, not just for this year, but as we start to tackle a longer-term planning cycle for the district. And don't get wrapped around the axle in terms of the nomenclature, academic year goals versus longer-term goals. I think just for ease of understanding, the longer-term goals represent goals that the board had last year that are kind of like flowers that are perennial, you know, long-lasting, not, one and done type things. Okay? Any questions about the ask, the process, and our next steps as it pertains to this effort? None? Great, well, thank you. That then takes us to recognition of visitors. This will be our second recognition of visitors for the night. I see our former colleague.
Please state
Teresa
your name
Boudic.
and speak into the microphone, sorry.
We need to make sure it's on.
Yeah, the reminder for the microphone is important.
Liberating, standing over here instead of sitting over there. I've been on both sides. I've spent a lot of time at board meetings over there as well. I have a couple of things. First of all, your goals, Terry, they were succinct. They can be measured. They are, the way it was presented when I read it online, I thought they were very clear, and there's a way to tie it in at the end of the year so it's not vague. I think they're obtainable, and again, I thought it was really important that you outlined it that clearly. As far as board goals, they usually tie into, obviously, the superintendent's goals to some degree. There was nothing online, so at this point, I'm not sure what your little magic papers say, but I would ask everyone that you are looking at all different grade levels and enhancements. The one thing I haven't seen or heard anything about is special education, reviewing program, seeing where those improvements or changes can be made. It seems to be, and this is going on for many, many years, it seems to be always the forgotten child. And probably as guilty as everyone else in my 3 years here, it always something else is more pressing. Capital projects, everything. And budgets, which are starting the day you vote. So I ask you to please consider when you're looking at your goals and the budget for this year, that you can look at special education and how we can improve it, perhaps streamline it in areas, perhaps add in areas, I don't know. And last, as far as the fund balance, I told you, Mr. Scotland, I was worried about that TRS. I think it's important when we think about fund balance. I find it very important that this district has a secure fund balance in each of the important areas. It's like how you manage your home, and the school district should be the same. But on the other hand, you have to be cautious when you talk about leftover money. It almost sounds like you've bulked up a budget the year before to add money to the next year. I know that's not the case, but anything that you decide you want to look at other funds and money to put aside, I would imagine has to be considered by all of the district, the teachers, the staff, just as we do with programs, adding teachers, adding counselors. So I look forward to visiting you every now and then. I can come late, I can leave early. And thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Teresa. Anyone else? All right. So that will then take us to closing comments from the board. I will start with this side, and Kate Patterson.
You mean you just want me to give like my feedback?
So I didn't mean to put.
Yeah, they don't have to.
I don't mean to put you on the spot.
Okay.
You can say, provide a closing comment.
Okay.
A minute.
Sorry, I was unclear.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think I may have expressed it to Nick
Yeah.
before you arrived. So I don't mean to put you on the spot, but just remember, you can always opt to pass.
Okay.
That's always fair. So.
Kate, too, sometimes the previous reps would just share like the vibe of the building at the end, you know, like you do your report, but also like just how are you guys doing? What are the kids settling into and so on, so.
I think overall it's been really positive. Like out of my 4 years in high school, this being my last, I've only had good experiences. My first, I know it's only been like 9-10 days, but it's been it's been really good. Even the freshmen, I think last year the class was fine, but maybe I'm a little biased, but I think this year our grade, and I feel like especially with the senior sunrise, there was a really big emphasis on like uniting our grade that I've never heard anyone talk about before. So that was really refreshing, and I just wanted to bring that up because I like that. I think Nick knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, thank you this was a great first meeting.
Fantastic. Nick?
I completely agree with Kate. I just feel like this year, I know I haven't experienced the other years as a senior, but I just feel like this year the seniors are so connected and we're a big community together and we're all enjoying school so much. And I feel like I've been seeing it in the other grades as well. Like I just feel like we're becoming a really strong community at the beginning of the school year. And that's pretty much it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. Christian?
So I just wanted to start with apologizing to a community member who tried to reach us and because of the email wasn't able to. And I just wanted to apologize for myself personally because that's my responsibility is at least partially mine and just resolve to do better. And I also want to kind of acknowledge the student reps, and I'm just going to, talking to one of your previous incarnations here in previous years, said to me that he often felt like they were too boxed in by a script, and they felt like they weren't able always to say what they want to, and I want to just encourage you to, you might not have a vote, but you do have a voice, and that voice is important. And just because when you hear that from someone like in my position, you might not think that I'm serious. I just want to share my own story on this. When I first went to grad school, I had a professor named Samuel Huntington, and he was a university professor at Harvard, and very important, been on the National Security Council. And from the very first moment I met him, he insisted on calling him Sam. And he lived that because he thought like, everyone who's sitting at this table is equally important. And the newest person has just as good ideas as the person who's been here for a very long time. So of course I took him at his word. And he presented a chapter of his last book. And I spent 45 minutes telling him why he was wrong. And then I realized that maybe I dug myself into a hole too deep. And the seminar ended. He walked over to me. I was sitting here. He was up there. And I thought, it was a nice life. And he paused and he said, thank you. And I hope to pay that forward, and I hope that one day you will tell me what I'm not seeing clearly and set me straight, and I look forward to the opportunity to thank you for it.
Thank you, Christian. Carl?
First, I just wanted to touch base on the September 6th. I went to my first Orange County School Board meeting. We had Speaker Robbie Green, very good. I shared some information with Terry, and I told him I'd give him some additional information about meeting up with them, in the future. So that was one. Second thing is, I wanted to just address the construction issue real quick. There's a lot of things going out in the town, about the construction and the delays and all of that. I just want to make it clear that this construction delay has nothing to do with Terry Dade or his staff. I think it's important for everybody to know that. Terry didn't sign the contract. We have guys that are obligated to get this job done, and all he's doing is informing the community and the board every day on what's going on over there. So I just wanted to be fair to him and say this is not his doings. That, I did put in an email to you too, Terry, that I wanted to thank you for all the constant updates. I mean, every day, 3, 4, 5, probably more. And I really appreciate that. So Terry's doing everything he has to do to keep this board informed. And I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that publicly, The other thing I had to do this year, last week I got a chance to work at the concession stand. It was amazing. I had a great time. I still think I cook better than Lou, but we're gonna have that cook-off. Jody Brahini and her team, what an awesome job. I mean, I don't know how this lady does it. She puts it all together, and I don't know, it works. And we had a great time doing it. Thursday, I had a lot of laughs. So I did reach out to her, and I asked her, what can we do to help you out? Because it seems like volunteers is something that she doesn't really get. And she said, something, if you could, maybe October 13th. And I said, sure, I'll be there. And then I said, you know what, it might not be a bad idea to get the board involved in this. October 13th, if I'm not mistaken, is like a homecoming, some big event there. And they can't really get any volunteers. And I thought, what a great time for the board as a team, maybe consider working on the concession stand. So I will send you the link, all right? October 13th, I know 3 or 4 of us have already signed up for it. I think it would be a really cool idea. Other than that, I'm good. Just wanted to thank you all.
Thank you, Carl. Brendan?
Okay.
Thanks, Carl. No, that was a great idea. Volunteerism is great. I support that in all its forms. Just want to start with just where we are in the school year. We've all had our open houses and all being back in the schools, and it's always great to walk the halls and see where your kids are sitting, meet teachers and everything. And as a parent, it's great to. I think it's the one night of the year where you really get to see, to inhabit their environment, kind of walk in their shoes. And I'm just always impressed by everybody in the buildings, all the teachers. Now my oldest daughter is going through middle school, so now I feel like I'm, seeing more of it, and just can't say enough about everybody at every level. It really is a great reminder of the amazing district that we have and all the hard work that goes into it. About the bathrooms too, to continue on or start to segue into that, would also like to thank the staff for rolling with all of these punches that the bathrooms have presented. I know that this is not ideal, nobody wants this, but when I talk to my daughters when they come home, it doesn't seem to be impacting their day, and that's in large part and almost entirely because of the staff that's making it work. We know that's not easy, so thank you. And to piggyback on your point, Carl, I think you're absolutely right. As a board, as an administration, I think Terry and his team is doing everything they can to keep us abreast. And I think our role now, and this is what I was getting at before, when this is done, I think that we do have a role in making sure that the construction and all the different partners have the resources that they need. Not just, obviously, they have the money they need, but if there's something that we can do to optimize the process for next time so we're not in this situation, and use this as a learning experience, because as we mentioned with the Capital Reserve Fund, we will possibly be going back to the community in the not too distant future and asking for another capital project to be approved. And as we know, there are things that have create an outsized memory in the public imagination. And something like this could be the thing that they come back to us and say, well, why support another project, even if 99% of it went off without a hitch? If the 1% was something so public as modular bathrooms, that might be all that they remember. And impressing that on them to understand that this isn't just about one bathroom, one timeline. There's actually a lot riding on this in the long term. So I look forward to having that conversation, and hopefully, as Terry said, we just get through this part as quickly as possible. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Brendan. Richard?
Sure, the microphone. So I'll start off by thanking and welcoming our new student reps, Kate and Nicholas. You guys did a great job tonight, and I really applaud you for sticking around for this hour-and-a-half plus meeting. So congratulations and welcome, and feel free to chime in whenever you have some input, ideas, or questions. Just feel like you're one of us. That's what we want, and I'm no longer the youngest person sitting at the table, so. Yeah, I should leave it at that, but I have a few more things to say. So I was happy to go to some of our schools on the Superintendent Conference Day, which I believe was on September 1st, and I just have to say, it was great to see our staff back in the building and to see that they were excited to be there, and the work and the effort that they were putting in to be ready for our students to be back in school just shows how passionate they are. And that's why we are one of the best school districts in the area, and I would argue in the state, because of our staff, our administration, our teachers, custodial staff, support staff. It takes a team, and I believe Cornwall works as a team. That's what makes us great. Quickly on the construction, I don't want to repeat what others have said. I want to thank Terry, the administration, for keeping the board informed on what's been going on. Obviously, these construction delays are very disappointing for all of us, and I want to thank our district staff for all the work and the extra work that you've had to put in to make this happen and make this work for the start of the school year. And hopefully moving forward, we can learn and make sure that this does not happen again. With that, I will leave it at that and hope everyone has a good night. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Louis?
Thank you. Kate and Nick, welcome. It's always, from the onset, I've always said it's great to hear your voices and hear those, of the students, because that's kind of what we're all here for, Mike Ford used to say, what's best for kids, right? So it's all about, back to the student. If we can relate it back to the student, you're doing good. So I like to hear your voices, hear you guys, hear your opinions and your thoughts. So pleasure to meet you and great to have you aboard. A big thank you to the building administrators. As I drove through town on the first day of school, the various balloons you saw at different schools, the kids at bus stops, happy to go in, kindergartners with their name tags on, backpacks with their names embroidered on them and all and such. I felt real comfortable. I mean, I have older ones, but real comfortable seeing kids entering the schools. Modular bathrooms aside, it's a hiccup. In a year from now, it'll be, it'll be gone. It'll be a blip on the radar. We'll all have collectively moved past it. But, I want to thank you guys for that. And where's Miss Mercedes? She was buzzing the hallway here. All the custodians getting the rooms ready. All the folks behind the scenes that you don't see. That all of a sudden, a room is painted, and that was some custodian on second shift. Getting it done. The band at CCMS is always a fun thing to see on the videos. So a big thank you for all those. I mean, you always make the mistake of when you thank one, who do you never make it personal, but you can't help it. Just in all, thank you for all of everyone's hard work to get the schools open this year and to make them as welcoming as I felt that they were. Thank you.
Thank you, Louis. Christine?
I feel like the person who goes last should be able to show their notes because I had all these bullets that have already been stated, and I'm a firm believer in don't talk just to talk. So I want to double down on thanking the custodial teams for getting the buildings ready in light of all the other things that were going on in the buildings. You know, folks take for granted, I think, how nice our facilities are, and I just want to double down on that. Also, I think, you know, I have seniors as well, and I have to say, if you can get a majority of the senior class up and out of the house before 6 a.m. on a Friday, you are doing something right, and there is something special going on. So kudos to you and your peers for creating a culture that is just collaborative and fun, because I think that's a lot of what makes high school just part of your overall growth and development is, you know, things that are happening even beyond the classroom, right? And so kudos to all of you for that. And Carl, thanks for bringing up the volunteer idea. I think it's a great opportunity for us to get together as a board and have some fun, or at least make some fun of it. And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Jim?
It only gets harder as it goes on to have something good to say. Lewis used to say this all the time. I got nothing left. So I know your pain there. No, I always so welcome Kate and Nick. I always thank the student reps, and I think I say this every time we have the student reps at the meeting, that that's what we're here. We're here for you guys. We're here for the students. So to hear you guys energized, excited, enthused, that's the lifeblood that we live off of. So welcome. Thank you for your reports, and we look forward to seeing you all year long. I echo what Carl and Brendan had to say about the capital project, so I won't go into that any further. Just, excited. Brendan mentioned open house, just getting back to the school year. I think really the only thing that I have to add that hasn't been said, I'll just give a shout out to a lot of varsity football players who I saw around town this weekend doing a lot of community service. I saw them. They did Friday night. They did an event for all the kids in the community, kind of a punt, pass, kick type deal, combine for the kids. They were up early Sunday morning down in COH at a charity 5K run event, and I saw guys out in their uniforms directing traffic and handing out water. And then my son was playing youth football Sunday afternoon, and we had some varsity players out there running the chains. So I think it's obviously we have a great culture of service for all of our high school students. And obviously the new special designation with the 200 hours is only going to see that improve. It's a great experience for our students for many reasons, to get them involved in the community, to meet members of the community that they wouldn't otherwise meet, to learn how to interact, to learn how to be leaders. So it's great for them, but it's great for our community to see those kids out and about. So just hats off to those football players I saw at various events around this weekend with their jerseys on, representing their team and their school. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Jim. So let me just say that all the comments I've heard this evening, I emphatically endorse. I'm not going to repeat. I may rhyme, but I will not repeat. So first, when it pertaining to Kate and Nick, let me just say that your presence here tonight is really impactful. Not so much for what you do and what you share, but how you conducted yourselves. The grace under pressure when you were asked to provide comments to a strange audience of adults suggests to me that something's right in terms of the development of our kids, right? A lot of other kids in a lot of other schools would have taken the easy way out and passed. But you didn't pass, you actually engaged. And to that, my hat's off to you. Thank you so much for that. Very impressive. And I think you represent your class and our district real well with how you conducted yourselves tonight. Opening day. Like Richard, I was there. Terry and I were in that hallway just there, watching a lot of smiling faces come through and all the excitement of getting ready for the first school day. It was shared to me, and I think this is where the Facilities Committee is going to be helpful in trying to get lessons learned and the key takeaways. It was shared with me that on that day there were more workers engaged in dealing with the bathrooms than in any single day throughout the summer. It's like they either were released or had prior commitments that prevented them, but on that day, they were all there, and it was like a squad within a very confined spot, all trying to take care of business. That in and of itself suggests that maybe our vendor management program needs some type of review in terms of how we make sure the people that we're engaging to do the right thing are actually doing the right thing. But that's a lesson learned that comes, and I don't want to forecast or describe any possible outcomes from that analysis. But I do want to dwell quickly on what the construction issue represented for me. I looked at it under three different perspectives. The perspectives of the administrators, the perspective of the teachers, and the perspective of the students. Not once in looking at those different points of view did I ever witness any type of disrespect, any type of derogatory statements, or any type of what I'd call inappropriate behavior. What I saw was demonstrated resilience at all levels, student, teacher, administrator, in terms of having a problem, focused on getting it resolved as quickly as possible, but staying focused on the task. And the task not being the bathroom, the task being educating our kids. For that, I'm grateful, and I'm also ecstatic, because that, I think, lesson of resilience is what Cornwall is all about. And with that, I will entertain a motion to end this meeting. Second? All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.